Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next installment of the 2024 Preseason Power Rankings, where today we're moving to our number 10 team, finally, in the top 10. This Packers team is so interesting because they were a super young team, just like they were last year. Youngest team to win a playoff game in NFL history, right? But man, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of good changes that were made, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, which we'll get to. I keep saying he who shall not be named in many videos when we reference his name, but I get to finally talk about that move. But, what are you thinking about this Packers team, Pat?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Last year, youngest team in terms of average player age to win a playoff game, right?
And was that not only to win a playoff game, but to make the playoffs too, right?
I think that sounds accurate. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
this team was really young, is the point, right? In spite of that, they won a playoff game, and I mean, they looked
Not
pretty
only
good
won
against
a
San
playoff
Fran.
game, dominated against
Yeah.
in the playoff
Yep.
game and went down to the wire with San Fran. Yep.
Yeah, who, San Fran made the Super Bowl, so that's no small task. This was a quarterback's first year as a starter, right? This was a receiver core a lot of people thought was a lot worse. There was a lot of stuff that should only be improving this year.
Yes.
One of those things includes that defensive coordinator that we refuse to name on the show. Now they have a new guy there. They've made so many changes that are going to affect this team positively. I feel very, very good about this team, not just this upcoming season, but down the line too.
Absolutely. This team can be a lot better than the 10th team, in the power rankings for sure. This is a borderline contender in a lot of people's eyes. They are in my eyes, but let's get into this head coach and culture where we get to one of the best head coaches in the league, in Matt LaFleur in my eyes, man. He is fantastic, not only from the X's and O's standpoint, but the culture that he's built around this Green Bay Packers team is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, right? LaFleur wants his guys to be able to execute, right? He cares less about the freaks of nature and more about just do the play that I draw up. If you do that right, we'll be just fine. And he tries to bring in defensive coordinators that'll call the right plays that allow him to bring in the same sort of players that he brings in offensively, right? Does he like his freaks of nature? Sure. The Jordan Loves, even the Lucas Van Nesses, the Rashawn Garys.
Their entire defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, they like the freaks, don't get me wrong, and defensive line is a place where they can afford to get the freaks of nature because they don't do anything overly complex up front.
Right.
But their top priority is bringing players that just execute, right? And they'll bring in the Jair Alexanders and the Jordan Loves every now and then, but it's more about execution, right? It's a team of guys who want to win. That's going to be a trend you see a lot in this top 10. These teams want to win, right? And their cultures are built to win. And that's the difference between a team that might have all the pieces, like Atlanta, and a team that actually puts those pieces together, like Green Bay. Now we're at that point where these cultures really revolve around winning, and it's a lifestyle, right? That is how the Packers are. This team's culture reflects the historic organization very well, in my opinion, because it's football first, right? It isn't like the Cowboys where, is Jerry Jones top priority the team and winning games, or is it
Doesn't seem like
making
it.
money? Right? With the Packers, you always know what they are doing is in the team's best interest in terms of winning games right now. And that's what separates them.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And we can move off of more of that culture and head more towards that X's and O's standpoint, moving to the offense coordinator. They have Adam Stanovich, but this is Matt LaFleur's offense. And what is his offense? It's a Shanahan disciple, West Coast style of offense. I mean, as we've said probably 20 times now in this series, that's what this Packers team is running, and it's so interesting. They use so much motion. Matt LaFleur is so creative in the way that he uses his receivers in these passing concepts and which receivers are on the field. This team wants to run the ball, but they're not afraid to pass, and they also fantastic at a play action. Matt LaFleur is one of the best play action head coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, LaFleur is probably my favorite offensive mind in the sport. And let me just say this right now.
Really?
I think Green Bay's offense is at least from last year, was probably the most fun offense to watch, at least for me, because they do a lot of creative stuff and they do it all the time, right? These Shanahan teams, they are built on misdirection more than anything, especially the direct Shanahan disciples, right? When you get to McVay and then you get to that branch, it strays a
That's
little
different.
bit
Yeah.
away from that, but the Shanahan guys, the McDaniels, the of course Kyle Shanahan's and the LaFleur's, right? Those offenses revolve around misdirection, right? Make everything look the same until it isn't. Very common thing that you hear all the time when people go into their play design philosophy. But Shanahan disciples design it the best, and LaFleur, he just loves throwing these wrinkles. He runs outside zone, but he's going to make it look like split zone, right? I mean, they run a lot of very interesting concepts, and you're like, how the hell do you do that, right? How are you running split zone, but it's actually counter, right? How do you go about that? Well, it
Right.
depends on the angle of the blocker and how you can maneuver this, and then you add a little bit of motion, and now it might even be a speed option, right? Like they could do all this different stuff, right? He really takes the NFL rules and what is a legal and an illegal formation, he really treads that line
Yeah.
very, very closely. And he pushes it to the limit, man. Like you said, the play action, the motion, like I said, is a big thing here. A lot of choice routes, right? That's a very common thing in the Shanahan tree. It's a fun offense to watch because of these play designs, especially.
And I find it interesting because I feel like this is really one of the first years we really got to see how creative Matt LaFleur could be. Because when he had Rodgers, not saying Rodgers was a detriment to this team by any means, because he wasn't. It was more so Rodgers liked his offense, and his offense was a lot of trips, a lot of shotgun. He didn't want to do these crazy plays and that Matt LaFleur wanted to do. And
Yep.
now that Matt LaFleur is like, okay, I have my guy in here, and he has to say yes to me. We're running these plays, and
I mean,
it
we'll
worked
see
out
how the
well.
money changes Jordan Love, right?
Yes, we'll
But
see if Jordan Love checks out of the split zone counter for all forwards. We'll see if he
right?
does that.
Yeah. But no, it's fun, and the fact he has a tool like a Jordan Love really makes this interesting. I want to dive into the quarterback now,
Yes,
right? Jordan Love, he plays football like it's Madden in a good
he
way,
does.
right? There's that has a negative connotation, but it also has a positive connotation. I mean, you know how like when you're playing franchise mode and you have a really good quarterback, you kind of just do whatever and you're fine making like throws off your back foot and they're still completed. Like Jordan Love
Yeah.
does that all the time, right?
Yep.
For him, a three-step drop is a three-step and then just roll out for no reason drop, right? Like this is his game, and it's weird because it doesn't hurt the offense too much. It's almost like the offense really encourages him to do that. He will play in structure at times, but he is a gunslinger, right? 100%
Absolutely.
gunslinger.
Yeah. No, Jordan Love. It was really interesting. Had a bit of a tumultuous season last year. It was started off okay, and then midway through the season, you get to the week 8, week 9, he really started to slow down. This offense started to struggle, and then all of a sudden, back half of the season, there might not have been a better quarterback in football. There may not have been. He was fantastic. He was finally on the same page as his young receiving core, which is hard as a young quarterback in your first start. Finally getting this offense down, trusting the offense that LaFleur put in front of him, and yeah, like you said, this is when it comes to arm talent, mobility, just being a special athlete at quarterback, that's Jordan Love. He can make every throw in the book. He's got some of the best arm talent in the league. And on top of that, when he's on, some of the best ball placement that you saw last year. He can really put that ball wherever he
Mm-hmm.
wants. When he's on, sure he had his inaccuracy issues, but that's also because he's still a raw young quarterback
Yeah.
who's still trying to get his mechanics down, and they're
Uh-huh.
not down yet. But he
Mm-hmm.
has the arm talent and the arm strength to kind of make up for it at this point. And you're expecting him to get better heading into year 2 with this same exact receiving core. There's nobody new. They didn't go and trade for C.D. Lamb or Brandon Ayuk. You know what I mean? They're sticking with this core, with their young team, heading into another year of this offense. It should be really good. This offense should be very good.
Yeah, and listen, Jordan Love's decision making can be an Achilles heel for them, but his gung ho decision making is part of the reason they've won some of the games they won last year,
Yeah.
right? Because man, he could make some of those difficult throws. Sometimes he might attempt them and they won't work and it ends up being a pick, but sometimes he's gonna drill the ball to the sideline, perfect spot, and a player makes the play, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a playmaker, man, and that's what you love about him, right? And they're gonna die by the gunslinger, live by the gunslinger. Like that's what this is. And when it works, it works. That's what this is. He's a very, very good quarterback, though. Don't get it twisted because his interceptions might be a little bit. You watch my film and you're like, what are you doing? Because I'm telling you, he'll make some plays that really make up for it.
Yeah. It's a very much kind of a Josh Allen sort of
Yeah,
thought
absolutely.
process there of, yeah, gunslinger, there are some bad plays, but the good plays heavily outweigh the bad plays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we move over to that young receiver core that you mentioned.
It's a bunch of dudes, man.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
bunch of dudes.
exactly. There isn't a stud, right? There isn't. But you look and you have, I think, four, maybe five good, good, solid receivers that could go out there and consistently contribute in their role, right? Uh, because I mean they're all young guys, but they execute this choice route scheme. They aren't making the wrong decisions. They consistently catch the ball, and then they all have their role. They all have something that really separates them from the next guy and the guy before them.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the one I think is the best receiver and who I think could potentially be like the number one guy in this offense. Although that's hard to do because Matt LaFleur just kind of like, okay, whoever goes in, and we're running this play. But uh, I love Dontavian Wicks. I love what he put on film last year as a rookie. I did a film review on my TikTok about him. He shades. It's before anybody overreacts. I'm saying shades of Devonte Adams in the sense he's got this really, really nice release package that really
Mm-hmm.
works well in this offense, in this choice route offense, as you keep saying. Really hard to press the line of scrimmage, really hard to keep up with at the line of scrimmage because his release package is so great. He's also got fantastic hands. He's a great route runner. I'm a big, big time Dontavian Wicks guy. And the fact that the preseason started this offense and it started with a slot fade touchdown to Dontavian Wicks from Jordan Love made me very happy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not the only guy in this room because, again, everybody's going to get their share of the ball. And you've got a guy like Romeo Dobbs, who different kind of player. He's a fine route runner, but nice hands. He catches everything. You
Yeah,
throw something his way, he's
possession
going to catch.
guy, large
Possession guy.
catch radius. He'll make catches outside of his frame. He's a very reliable target for a Jordan Love. You're right. The separation isn't on point, but he's a possession guy. That's what he's here to do. Jaden Reed is probably my favorite of these receivers.
Okay.
Again, I think it's really close because they all do different stuff. Jaden Reed is the after catch guy, though. He's someone, you throw him the bubble and he'll make a play in that way. But he's also a very good route runner, right? I really
Yes,
like how
very good route
nuanced he
runner.
is. And he contributes a lot in that way. With his speed, he's a good separator who will make plays after the catch. That is his role. And then we got Christian Watson. If he could stay healthy, I feel like people would talk about him a lot more. But when healthy, it seems like the Packers believe he's the one, right?
That's what it seems like. I
I
I
don't
didn't I
I don't
don't love.
agree, but
Yeah.
like I don't like strongly disagree,
Yeah.
right? He definitely is the biggest like freak, without a doubt, because
Absolutely.
he has the
Absolutely,
speed, he
without a
has the
doubt.
size, and I think because of that he's the biggest playmaker. I feel like Jaden Reed's also a heck of a playmaker, but because of what Christian Watson offers from a physical trait perspective, he probably is the biggest playmaker out of these guys. I don't love the route running, but he could
It's not
really
really
take the
the
top
route
off of a
running for me.
defense.
I don't
Yeah.
love the physicality. I
Uh,
think this is somebody who struggles in contested catch situations. I think as a blocker, he doesn't do much of anything. I'm just not a huge Christian Watson guy. I'm rooting for him. I hope he stays healthy. But there's even like Malik Heath and Bo Melton. made
Bo
some plays
Melton was the
last
guy
year.
I wanted to hit on, right? When
Yes,
I
go ahead
said
with Bo
four,
Melton.
maybe a fifth, Bo
Yes,
Melton was the guy that I was talking about because he is
go ahead.
someone. Something about these Meltons, man. They're fast. They got speed,
They're,
right?
they're athletes.
Yeah, and again, like I mentioned with Jaden Reed, he offers that speed, but when Christian Watson goes down and he needs someone to take the top of the off of the defense consistently, that is what Melton's here to do, right? He plays that role where even if he's not catching the ball, the defense is changing what they're doing because Melton is on the field. Melton is a very important receiver for this team because Christian Watson does have the injury history, right? And that is what I really like about Melton. As your fifth receiver, oh my lord. Like, I don't know how many better fifth receivers there are in the league. I don't know if there are any, really, right?
Yeah,
But Malik Heath is also, a fine name for them. It's a deep receiver core, and you can never have
it
too
is.
many good receivers, so.
Yeah, it's deep in an offense where it doesn't really look for super, like it doesn't need Jamar Chase, T Higgins, all that. I'm sure they'd love it, of course, but this is an offense that just finds ways to just create make their receivers open. There's the way LaFleur draws up these plays is it's just, hey, trust me, I'm gonna run this play. You're gonna be open. Okay, it doesn't matter who's lined up right there. This player is gonna be open, and that's what LaFleur does with this receiving corner. It works well because these guys all do their job. So then we move off of these receivers to this tight end room, which is a super fun tight end room.
Yeah.
They went and drafted two rookies that a lot of people really liked, and they both looked good when they played. I wasn't the biggest Luke Musgrave guy like a lot of people were out of last year's draft, but I was a really big Tucker Craft guy. And I think Tucker Craft, for me, looked the better of the two, at least because partly because Kraft was on the field more last season because
Yeah,
Musgrave was hurt.
Musgrave dealt with injury, and
Yeah,
that was an issue we knew about Musgrave coming out of college.
yeah,
Yeah, what Musgrave offers though is more of speedy guy, big play
yes,
threat. That is what he's going to offer for you,
exactly.
and a lot of people really like that. Of course, LaFleur likes that, and when you have a Tucker Craft right next to him, to be more. It's a little bit weird because Musgrave plays the traditional tight end spot, but he doesn't play it like a traditional tight end, right? Tucker Craft plays the traditional tight end spot, and he is a more traditional tight end.
Right.
Musgrave, he's a pass catching specialist.
He's a vertical threat.
Yeah, vertical threat from the inline tight end spot. I don't really love him as a jumbo slot, which is
No.
interesting because normally those vertical threats, you want them to be, your jumbo slot, right? So it's a very interesting situation with Muncher.
And I think that comes from the fact that, like, I don't think Musgrave is that great of a route runner. I think he's just a really big
Yes.
athlete that
Uh-huh.
can run fast.
Yeah.
That's what you're gonna get with him. But Kraft, I think, is a lot more nuanced in his game. He's a good blocker. He's big size, 260, and not only that, but he's a nuanced route runner for a tight end, and he knows how to like settle into zones, and he's got reliable hands. I love Tucker Kraft coming out of that draft. So the fact they landed with this team is great. But hey, they've got two tight ends that fill two different roles, and that's a great thing to have in this offense. And they ran a lot of 12 personnel. They liked having two tight ends on the field.
Even Kraft is someone they'll line up as an H-back at times, which, having that versatility is very, very nice. Then I say we move over to the running backs now.
Yes, this is a interesting room.
There was a 24-hour period, just about 24-hour period, where the whole world thought this was going to be the craziest running back room in football with Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
Then Aaron Jones, got bounced. Okay, sure. They kind of didn't need both, so it's like whatever. But, man, Josh Jacobs is still a really good running back. And let me tell you right now, they drafted another guy that makes this...
They did. Yes, they did.
Could have made this potentially really exciting. Now, the guy got injured. I'm talking about Marshawn Lloyd. He could still come back, but, that could have been really fun. And, they also have A.J. Dillon. It's a nice running back room, but Josh Jacobs, he's someone, runs tough, right? And he's going to be their lead back without a doubt. He runs really tough.
Yeah.
But he does have the ability to bounce around if needed.
Yes, I was going to say he's a downhill style of runner. That's what he prefers to do. But once he gets to that second level, it's not just, oh, I'm going to hit the safety, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
fall forward for 5 yards. He can make somebody miss, has a nice stiff arm. He's electric once he gets the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
He's not some downhill runner who just stops once he hits somebody. He can make
Yeah.
somebody miss and keep going.
One of the more well-rounded running backs in the league, right?
Yes.
Because there's not many people that can run as elusive as him while also being able to hit the hole quite like him. Like, that versatility is really important, and he can catch passes out of the
I was
backfield.
gonna say, yeah, he's still an effective player out of the backfield
Mm-hmm.
catching passes. Absolutely. For some reason, Las Vegas just didn't do it a ton.
Yeah.
Like they just decided we don't want to involve our running backs in our or if they did, they just put in another player, and I'm like, you don't need
Yeah.
to. Josh Jacobs can catch the ball. He can make plays after the catch.
Exactly. And that's something about his game that he's improved at, right? When he
Yeah.
first came into the league, he wasn't much of a, pass catcher. But as time went on, he developed that skill and he became very reliable in that way. But then you look at the rest of the running back room, AJ Dillon has kind of done nothing, but I still
Yeah.
like what he puts out
I
on tape.
I like some of the stuff he puts out on tape. I think there are times, when you get into these cold snow games, offensive lines pushing
Mm-hmm.
people around, it's really hard to tackle AJ Dillon.
Yes.
There's also times where I'm thinking, man, you should have way more contact balance than that.
Yeah.
You're way bigger than
Mm-hmm.
the guy who's tackling you. So it's a mixed bag here. I am really sad that Marshawn Lloyd did get injured. I hope he comes back soon because I really like the idea of Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd backfield. Marshawn Lloyd could be more of that. We say it in a lot of these running back rooms because people like and design that way. Marshawn Lloyd's the lightning, while Josh Jacobs would be the thunder, while also, being the lightning at the same time.
Yeah,
Josh Jacobs
right.
is that kind of player. But Marshawn Lloyd, really nice zone runner, which is a great fit for this style of team. And he's somebody who can really do a home run ball if he wants to. He's got a lot of nice speed in this game while still being a compact, low to the ground runner.
There's a lot of his game he has to work on, which is why him missing time is really worst case scenario. That being said, the physical traits are there, man. It's just about making him not unbearable to watch on film because, oh my lord, can you just hit the gap, man? Like, what are you doing? He searches for the big play way too much. It pisses me off.
Yes, he
It's not
bounces,
even
tries
like
to bounce a lot.
it's not like his vision is bad necessarily. I feel like he sees the gap. He's just like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
He literally will see a gap and he'll go, I think I could be this guy around the edge, and then he'll bounce it.
Exactly. And sometimes he does, and it's sick, right? And sometimes he'll reverse field and then make a play. But in the NFL, how consistently is that going to happen?
You can't do that
right?
in the NFL. Maybe a couple times a year, but you can't do that consistently.
Exactly. Which is why, as a complimentary guy, it's really interesting. But as the lead back, thank God he doesn't have to play that role. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
But yeah, now we move on to the offensive line.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll just go right to left. Start with Rasheed Walker, who is going to be this team's starting left tackle. There's a lot of people who thought maybe it was going to be new first round draft pick, Jordan Morgan. But right now it's looking like it's Rasheed Walker's spot. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I like what Rasheed Walker put on tape last year. In 2022, came in as a 7th round draft pick, has been developed a bit under Bakhtiari, and got his first starting gig last year. And I thought he was fine. I think as terms of play style, I think he was kind of in that we're kind of using the Cam Robinson, Deion Dawkins range of players.
Exactly.
Nothing spectacular, but he's solid, and a team will take him.
Yep. And that's a trend on this O-line, right? I think even Jordan Morgan fits that bill, right?
Yes.
It's a lot of guys who, good zone blockers, right? They do a good job. They're not going to knock someone on their ass, but, they're going to move the guys forward, get a vertical push, and then when they're pass blocking, they don't get beat often, right? It's just a group of fine guys. None of these guys are household names. They haven't had a household name since David Bakhtiari was in his prime and wasn't getting injured every other game, right? And Corey Linsley was still with the team, right? They haven't had guys like that in a while, but they don't need to, right? Everyone that comes into Green Bay somehow just becomes a very consistent role guy, Okay? And that's why I don't have a problem with Rasheed Walker. However, they brought in Andre Dillard. I know it seems like Andre Dillard is boned at this point because, once again, the film is very bad. But if anyone can fix him, it would be Dallas one, then probably Callahan, and then Green Bay. Right? Like, that's how I'm feeling here. I think there's a world where Dillard maybe puts together a strong preseason, and then he takes over. Not because Walker's bad, but because Dillard has the ability to be like a guy, And if you make him consistent, he can be a guy. It's just easier said than done. I just want to throw out the possibility.
Right. I think it's going to take a lot. I think it's going to take
Yeah.
a real good preseason from Andre Dillard to wipe away his film from last year. But we'll move on to the left guard spot. Elton Jenkins, because he's continually gotten better and better, and I thought he had a really, really strong year last year. And again, you already touched on it. Most of these guys are just solid, not great. You can say that about Elton Jenkins, their left guard. You can say that about Josh Myers, especially their center. He's a guy he's all right. He's a decent center.
Yeah.
He's fine. Please remember, they took this guy over Creed Humphrey. I'll never let the Packers live that down. They took Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey.
Yeah.
So, he's cool. And then we get to the right guard with Jordan Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I personally wasn't a big Jordan Morgan guy. I was a bit surprised he went as high as he did. However,
the fit is perfect.
Exactly.
They run so much zone, inside and outside zone. Morgan that's his game, man. Now, that's what it is. And he is
do you think it translates? Oh, go ahead.
He's just a perfect example of what we've been talking about in the sense of good, does his job consistently, doesn't put up highlights, but he does a fine job and he allows your other guys, your playmakers, your Josh Jacobs, your Jordan Loves to make highlight plays. Right?
Yeah. So I have to ask, how do you think he translate moving to guard? How do you think that works out? Do you think he'll be fine?
Just fine. I don't see any reason on tape for him not to be able to. I'm more worried about guard switching to tackle than tackle switching to guard, truly. Right? Because I don't want to say the job is just easier, but assuming that you have fine strength, right, the job is easier, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what you're responsible for.
I understand what you're saying, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you move to probably definitely the best offensive lineman on this team, and Zach Tom really had a nice year at right tackle. And Zach Tom's an interesting case of, for one, having shorter arms and falling in the draft, for one. And then teams being like, well, tackle with short arms, let's move him to guard. And then you find out, maybe tackles that don't have the greatest play strength, pushing forward strength in the world shouldn't be moved to guard, and then they struggle at guard. Mm-hmm. And then he finally got moved back. And Zach Tom was a fantastic right tackle last year. He was awesome. And it really comes down to his technique from the position, regardless of his arm length, is stellar. Fantastic.
And that's how you have to make up for that. That's how Rashawn Slater makes up for it. That's how, Skoronski makes up for it. In order to play with shorter arms as a tackle, you gotta have near perfect technique. And Zach Tom does. Are there times where the short arms do show up on film and he gets beat around the edge because someone swipes his hand away? Absolutely. But because of how consistently he can win just purely using his technique, he's just fine.
Do you want to talk about any of the depth pieces along this offensive line?
Nah, like I said, the only one I think is worth mentioning is Dillard because of, his physical traits. Not that it's overly likely that he has a starting role, but once again, I trust this coaching staff a lot to teach him how to be better at football.
So let's move into our offensive superlatives and offensive rookie of the year. Who is your offensive player of the year in this roster?
Jordan Love, Offensive Player of the Year. I think it's really difficult to say anyone else. He is that good of a quarterback, and he's the distributor. He's the point guard. I could see maybe a Josh Jacobs argument. I don't think they're going to be that run-heavy, though. I think it is going to be a Jordan Love first offense, and I think the run game is going to open up the pass game because of that play action and everything.
I have to agree with you there. I think Jordan Love is really the only answer as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then offensive rookie of the year, I'm assuming we have the same one in Jordan Morgan.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Marshawn Lloyd, I still think could be interesting when
Now,
he comes
yes,
back, but
if
there's no
Lloyd
world
was
where.
healthy right now, I think there's an argument. But
Yeah.
we know Jordan Morgan is playing at right
Mm-hmm.
guard. Could get moved to tackle. We'll see. But let's. Do you have your 12th man and or
I
X
have my
Factor?
12th man, but Mr. Make the Graphics over here, I have a question for you. The top three receivers, who do you think they'll be? Because there will be an odd man out,
Dobbs,
and
I
that
think
odd
Dobbs,
man is my 12th man.
Dobbs is for sure going to be
Yeah.
on the starting receivers. So is
Romeo
Jaden Reed.
Dobbs. They love
I
Christian Watson.
I know, but I don't think they're keeping Wicks off the field, man. I think
Okay, well then, do you think Jaden Reed goes off the field?
I don't think Christian Watson.
Nah, I don't think that. I don't think that's.
I know they're gonna.
Even
they're
if
gonna make him.
yeah, they're gonna make him because of when he was drafted, he's a freak of nature, right? And the impact he has, you need someone to stretch the field vertically.
I'll tell you this.
In
I
that
think
way.
it's gonna be really. I think Dontavian Wicks is on the field, so I guess it.
Okay,
has to
so
be
then Jaden
Reed.
Reed. Okay, then Jaden Reed, who I think is the best receiver on the team, is my 12th man.
Exactly.
Yeah, like there you go, right?
And keep in mind when you see the graphic. Maybe we should just make it out of 12 personnel so we don't have to deal with it. We just put top two guys and just call it a day. But when you see the graphic, these receivers rotate in and out so much.
Mm-hmm.
When you see who's on the field, that's what's going to be maybe 10% of the time. It's going to be different every single time.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to mix it up a lot. And because of that, I have the 12th man. Because they have a lot of good players, right? You can even make an argument that Tucker Kraft is the 12th man. Or Luke Musgrave. Do we know?
That was my 12th man in the sense of whichever tight end is not on the field.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? I am excited to see it.
And then your X Factor's on defense, I presume?
X Factor is on defense, yes.
Good. All right. So let's move into
Let's move to the defense, yeah, for sure.
We can finally talk about it. They finally fired Joe Barry. Joe Barry.
Name dropping now.
We've gotten to the point where I can name drop him. Joe Barry has been one of the worst coordinators in football for the last 3 years. He has been awful. You look at this roster, because it's not that different from last year. It's a little different, but not that different. This is a really good, on paper defensive unit. And Joe Barry continually made it awful.
I think so much of it is just looking at it now as a 4-3 team makes you feel so much better, right? If Rashawn Gary always had the label of defensive end, I feel like everyone would look at him a lot more positively. Yeah. I think we're in agreement. This is going to be a big year for, honestly, that defensive line. I don't just, yeah. Well, yeah, the whole defense, truly.
It should be the whole defense.
Yeah, no.
But yes, that defensive line, I completely agree.
Yeah, it should be a big year for the defensive line. That's because we won't see guys that shouldn't be dropping back into coverage, right?
So and that's because they hired
Jeff Hafley.
Yes. Yeah, from Boston College. And, I mean, it's a 4-3, kind of.
I would say a 4-2 is what I'm expecting.
Well, yeah, I would say 4-3, but yeah.
4-3 is what he ran in college, but I'm expecting a 4-2.
They're going to run nickel. I agree. But this is very much kind of a Saints style of defense in the sense it's a lot of cover 1, a lot of cover 3. They're going to be in nickel. They're going to be in 4-3. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of exotic pressures, not a lot of we're doing disguising this, disguising that. It's not some super creative defense. It is, hey, we're running man coverage with one eye safety, try and beat us, okay?
Yeah, that's their defense.
You know what? That's a lot better than telling your defensive backs to play 10 yards off the receiver, okay?
Yeah, and you just look at the personnel. Once again, we're going to get into the personnel deeper, but it's a much better fit. It's a much better fit at every level. The defensive line is better fit for a 4-down front. The linebackers are better fit for, I mean, I guess the linebackers, it doesn't change too much. But I do like them more as man coverage guys, for sure, right? This is a room of corners I think should have been playing man their entire career, right?
Yep.
Like, they can play zone, and they're fine at it, but truly, these are man coverage guys. So, doing what they've been doing with them for as long as they've I just can't support it much. I mean, I'm just currently getting my notes for one of the rookies. I just want to bring it up because there is a rookie on this secondary that I'm very, very, very confident in his ability to go ahead and play. I just want to have those notes ready for when I get to make my rant.
Damn, but they really drafted 3 safeties.
Yeah, but you know what, man?
Looking at this and I'm like, damn.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
That's fine by me.
It was the worst safety room in the NFL.
Yeah.
So they were like, we're just gonna attack it, man.
Yeah,
And
they also attacked in free agency too.
Yes.
You know, they brought in one big name.
So I really want to start with this defensive line because there is so much talent along this defensive line. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 first-round draft picks along this defensive line, man, and I'm excited about each and every one of them personally. So I want to start with the best player on this defensive line, and that's Rashawn Gary. It is. He's one of the most underrated players in the league because he keeps getting misutilized, and it's malpractice the way he was used last year. Joe Barry should be in prison, not coaching the linebackers of the Miami Dolphins, okay? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, freak of nature. That's what he was coming out of Michigan. That's what he continues to be in the NFL. Such a powerful rusher, not much of a finesse guy, but he's somebody who's going to get into your chest and push you right.
And now he's going to have his hand in the dirt, right?
Yes.
He won't be in a 2-point stance, right? He's going to be in a 3-point, maybe even a 4-point, and he is going to murder some tackles, man. It is going to be great to see. And let me tell you right now, like, there are plays with teams trying to block him with the tight end because he was a 3-4 outside linebacker. Never worked. Like, ever. Like, ever. You need to bring some big boys to block Rashawn Gary because, oh, man, does he have strength. Oh, man, can he seal the edge, make plays, and put linemen in the quarterback's lap. Just a great player in that way. I think this is the year where he finally gets his flowers. Absolutely. This is going to be a big breakout year for him.
I want to ask, who do you think ends up being the majority of the time opposite rusher across from him? Because I think it's going to be Lucas Van Ness.
I hope it's Van Ness. I also think the scheme fit is better for Van Ness.
Yes.
I don't like Preston Smith too much as a 4-3 edge.
Much
like him as a 3-4 outside linebacker.
Yeah.
As a 3-4 outside linebacker, he's good at that because he can blitz a little bit, but he could also play back in coverage. Like, he could do both. So I guess Van Ness just because of the scheme. But where is Van Ness at this point, right? I don't know. We haven't seen enough.
We'll have to see. Yeah.
Right?
I thought he put some good stuff on tape last year.
Yeah.
I really liked him coming out of the draft. Again, they love drafting the freak of natures.
At some point, Van Ness can become like this absolute world beater. At some point. It's just a question of when and if.
Yeah.
Will he, right? Will he put the pieces together? Because in terms of play strength, I know he hasn't played much, but like that was something that showed on tape last year. He's definitely physically fit to play in the NFL. Without a doubt, it's just some of that other stuff. And also, how much does it really matter? When you knock opposing tackles on their ass as often as he does, maybe you don't need the best technique on earth, right?
Yeah.
He's just a havoc maker.
And then you look, then we touch on Preston Smith a little bit of the sense. Preston Smith much more of he's a bigger outside linebacker for sure, but he's more of that beat you around the edge kind of player. Mm-hmm. And he's here. I think it's Van Ness's spot. Really, I'd be surprised if Lucas Van Ness was playing a lot this year. But then you look on the interior. Well, actually, no, I'm fine moving the interior actually. But you move the interior, there's 2 first-round picks there too. Yep. And Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt. And Kenny Clark just got paid again this offseason.
Good
player, man. Good.
Really
He's
good player.
A fantastic player.
Yep.
Especially as a run defender.
Yes, that is where he makes
one of the best run defending tackles in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a force on the interior. In the 3-4 defense, he was 2-gapping a lot. Now he won't be in charge of that too much. So now he gets to go even more crazy. Right? He is someone that can get past linemen, but he can also just put them in the quarterback's lap, too. Like, he could do both. He could throw linemen at running backs. I've seen him do it. Okay, he is that type of, like, physical, imposing presence. And then TJ Sladen is more of the Patrick Seifer defensive tackle.
Nose tackle. Just going to stay in a
Big
gap.
guy, stay in a gap, right? That's what I love
But then
to
you have
see.
a guy like Devontae Wyatt here. It was, again, another first-round draft pick. It was a super athlete.
He hasn't put it together yet. Why?
He hasn't put it together yet.
No,
he has not.
Maybe he puts it together
flashes.
this year?
He's shown flashes. He's
Uh-huh.
Last year I thought I saw a lot of flashes from him, but you're still waiting on it. But
Yep. I
this could
struggle
be
to put him out in the starting 2 right now
Oh
because
no,
Slayton,
yeah, I teach Slayton. They like their nose tackle. They
Yeah.
like having a guy like Slayton on the field, so that makes sense. But Devontae Wyatt's gonna come in more on passing situations.
Yes.
He's more of the pass rushing defensive tackle. But
Mhm.
they drafted 2 rookies last year who were good, in Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden. They were both nice on tape for a 6th round and a 4th round draft pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Carl Brooks really impressed me.
Yes.
I mean, they have a deep interior defensive line, really deep defensive line overall. I mean, truly, mainly at the interior spot, but like even Kingsley,
I was gonna say
Kingsley's someone who could come in. I think can impress at times. Yeah, it's a good defensive line with a lot of depth.
And they even, like Colby Wooden, these listed defensive tackle, he played off the edge for this team. He's 6'5", 270. He can play 4-3 defensive tackle. Defensive end. And that's what they did last year. So, again, just a really, really deep defensive line. And it's a defensive line that didn't look good because Joe Barry was their defensive coordinator. Yeah. So, you're hoping there's an upgrade here. There's so much talent here.
Yeah, and listen, I would say the defensive line still looked fine. It was just like,
it looked fine. I'm just saying this is like one of the best defensive line in the league potentially, and it just didn't look anywhere close to that.
And I think the interesting thing here too is Hafley. What he does is pretty simplistic, especially up front. He isn't going to have these obscure stunts. There's not going to be many blitzes. I mean, they can a little bit.
He doesn't blitz, man. He's cover 1. I'm sending 4 people. Good luck.
Yeah, and there's not stunts or anything, so you're going to have to win purely off of talent.
And they have that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a big advantage. Now we move over to these linebackers. Interesting room. Quay Walker, another guy who hasn't. Quay Walker, I think, is another guy who hasn't really he's not like a liability at all. But
yeah, he's not a liability at this point, but he's not.
You would have liked to see more from a first rounder,
right? But they took the old DeanoTalksSports method of approach to drafting a linebacker, and they said super athlete, big guy, let's draft him and get him to work out. And we're heading into year 3, which is a big deal.
That was the Jamin Davis year.
Yep, that was the Jamin Davis year, and that's what you're hoping this year is for Quay Walker, because we were talking about athletic linebackers in the NFL. Quay Walker is one of the most athletic that we have. 6'4", 240, can run with anybody, good in man coverage. I think he's fine in coverage. It's really, for him, it's not even a physicality thing. It's just like reading the run.
Yes,
it's just like reading what's in front of him, reading his gaps. Still not great at it, unfortunately. It's a lot of instinct out there rather than actually reading what's in front of him.
To me, he strikes me as a better man zone, or just any form of coverage guy than run defender. Like, he's a coverage first linebacker, very clearly. I do think them running more man is really going to benefit him because I think he was a good zone defender. Man is his bread and butter. Like, that's where he makes his career, really. And then Isaiah McDuffie, I mean, like, there's a lot that you want to see at the linebacker spot that you don't get out of McDuffie.
Yeah.
Right? And, I mean, that's why they drafted Edgar Cooper. Right?
Yep. And Edgar Cooper, he wasn't my top linebacker. I believe he was my second-ranked one. And he's, again, another sense of athletic guy they want to draft. Yeah. Now, I think he's less raw than Quay Walker was coming out of college.
Edgar and Cooper was one of the toughest evaluations of a prospect I've done in a really long time. and that was because of how he was used. He would. There were plays where he was just a QB spy. When like the quarterback hasn't run all game, and you
Yeah.
just have him as a QB spy. What are you doing, man? Like it was a really, really annoying evaluation. It was hard to tell what he was and wasn't good at because he was. That was his position, QB spy. It wasn't linebacker. It was QB spy.
Yeah.
It was annoying, to say the least. But yeah, it seems like he has a lot of physical ability, without a doubt. He seems to be a good blitzer, right? He seems like he could be a good coverage guy, but again, they didn't really give him coverage responsibility, so it makes me question: is he a good coverage guy? I don't know, right? There's a lot of what is this guy for me.
Right. Absolutely, and I get that feeling too. But is there anybody else you want to talk? I know they drafted Tyrone Hopper,
Yeah.
not even around after him. I didn't really watch a ton of Hopper, so I don't have a huge opinion
Yeah,
on
I'm
him.
not. I wasn't. I didn't watch too much of his tape. I mean, he seems like he could be a little bit interesting. I'm surprised he went round 3 though. That really shocks me.
When I see a linebacker that's 230 and runs a 4.6, worries me a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Not that 40s matter, but I'm like, you should be running fast 40 at 230 at linebacker.
Yeah, right. It's yeah. It's like why is he going round 3? Right.
And
There's
why
like a
did you
round
take
6
a
guy.
linebacker right after him? You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
sure there's some other need there you had, or some other
Yeah,
good
and there's
player
no
on
way
the
it was
board.
best player available, right?
No,
There's no way.
there's
So
no way.
I don't get it, right? I think if we see McDuffie, that's a bad sign for Cooper, but it's not the end of the world,
Yeah,
right?
totally. So let's move off of the linebackers now and move into the secondary, which, again, you look at it and it's like, this is a really nice secondary, man.
Mm.
And then you're like, man, Joe Barry made this secondary quite bad last year. It's like I keep referencing back to him, but I'm like, there's so much talent on this
Mm.
defense that just hasn't been tapped into yet.
Yeah.
And let's start with the corners, and then we'll move to the safeties because that is an important part. Start with the corners. You start with Jair Alexander, who's one of the best corners in football, still is, has been since he entered the league. Not a whole lot to say here. Everybody knows about him. Fantastic zone and man coverage corner, but I think he's better in man, and now he's in a more cover one man coverage scheme, and I think he's in for a pretty nice season because of it. He's not playing 10 yards off of the receiver anymore.
Exactly that. Listen, and Jair can make some plays that way, but it simply isn't his game. You want to get the most out of this corner that is one of the best in the league, and you're paying a bunch of money. Okay, put him in man coverage and have him lock down Justin Jefferson. Watch him do what he did in the Vikings game. Right, that was one of the few games where they let him run a bunch of man, and it worked. Okay, do that more often. We're gonna see that now in Halfley's defense. Jair is gonna kill it. He's going to kill it. Eric Stokes. He was a rangy zone defender.
Yep.
I didn't think had a great feel for how to match certain concepts in zone. And man, I think he's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I think he is a much more suited to be a man coverage corner. And it sucks because, like, when he's been on the field, he's been good. It's just like he hasn't been healthy enough to be on the field these last couple of years.
And that's something, it sucks. For some reason, speed directly correlates with injury. And that's the reality of this league, and that's part of the reason you don't see Eric Stokes on the field as much as you'd like.
And you're hoping that changes this season because that could be a damn good corner duo. But they don't have – it's not like they're screwed if Eric Stokes isn't playing because Carrington Valentine played some last year, and he was good for the most part. He wasn't a liability, and he was a young athletic player who should be getting better. There's also a guy like Corey Ballantyne.
Yep.
Corey Ballantyne did it as well.
Yeah, you got Corey Ballantyne and Carrington Valentine. That's always a nice duo.
Absolutely.
Those two. Let me tell you right now, there was a way longer than I would like to admit period of time where I thought that Valentine and Ballantyne were like I merged their existence in my head because they're really similar in terms of how they play. Like they are, which is why it's so annoying how similar their names are. But they both are guys that can come in and they're kind of like the ideal depth corners.
Yes.
If you ask me, I think they're better man. Once again, both of them. So why were they running
and
so
then
much zone? I have no clue.
because Joe Barry is Joe Barry,
Yep.
and then you go to they did draft Kalen King, the king of mock drafts in
Hmm.
2023 or 2024, I should say. But this was somebody who was projected to go in the first round, and then you watched him, and it's just some really bad tape at Penn State.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wouldn't have drafted him personally. I don't even think he has the physical tools to be anything super special. He's here though. I thought you really give it a
Name worth
mention.
mentioning.
Name worth mention. I only mentioned it because yes, he was in first round mock drafts early on in the 2024 draft cycle.
Yep.
That is something that was real.
And then we have at nickel. It
Keyshawn
could be
Nixon.
Ballantyne.
It
Could be. But Keyshawn Nixon, with his speed. Oh, this is another guy has the tools to really be something. Really does. And I think he's fine at matching people. Again, I don't know how much he fits a man scheme yet. We'll see. He's probably just like everyone else in this room where they have the traits to be a really good man corner and they just never really got the opportunity, sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Nixon is someone I'm excited to see. And worst case scenario, you just start Ballantyne.
Who can do it?
Yeah.
Like you're feeling fine if he's doing it, right?
Mhm.
And then we move to this safety room, and it's gone from one of no, not even one of the worst safety room in the NFL to one of depending on yeah, I know you think very highly of Bullard, and I do too. One of the best safety duos in the NFL potentially. Like
I
this is
would I would feel pretty damn good saying it is the best. I
really
really would.
good.
I mean, who else would you say, right? I mean, Baltimore has a really good one.
Baltimore's got a damn good one.
Baltimore's good. I mean the Cardinals. Like I don't know how I'm feeling about Buddha,
I'm not
right?
feeling. Yeah, I guess you could say this is the best.
Yeah.
Maybe San Fran's
Oh,
depending on how.
Oh yeah, I like Mustafa. I like
Yeah, you
Mustafa,
like
and
Mustafa.
I mean we all saw the play. That play was sick.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get into San Fran because of that safety duo. They're running like double strong safety.
yeah,
If
I know,
Mustafa
dude.
starts,
They're gonna have a brand new defense where it's
yeah.
just a 4-6, and instead
Mhm.
of two high safeties, it's just four linebackers behind four linemen.
Yeah. No, but honestly, no, I think I do like this defense more because, man, I love Bullard. I love, love, love Bullard. I'm going to start my Bullard rant. Javon Bullard, someone you asked me should have been a first rounder. True. Like, and not just like a late first rounder. This was a class stacked at DB, right?
At safety specifically.
At safety and corner. Corner was
Yeah,
stacked too.
corner stack too, but
I think that despite that, this guy is probably and I loved DeGene. I loved DeGene. I loved Quinion Mitchell. And I really liked Terry and Arnold too. This guy was probably like my second best DB. He probably was. Like I loved what I saw from Bullard. He's just so well rounded and he has the versatility to do everything. Right? A too high guy. Could play too high coverage. Kill it. Murder it. Right? I mean, very, very good as a rangy zone guy up top, but he could also play single high. And he's able to make some plays. You know, he sees the ball getting thrown and he's able to make some plays, man. And then he could also play slot corner. I think you can make an argument that's his best role. He's an explosive and speedy guy who, with his high football IQ and ability to read runs, right? You see an outside run heading his way, he's gonna make a play. He is, and he does it consistently. He could lock down people in man and then cover a lot of grass in zone, and his understanding of route concepts while being able to read QB's eyes, and he closes in on the football quick. Man, he's someone you can't throw screen passes because of him. You can't throw a backside dig if he's the high safety because he's going to crack down on it. Whether he nails your wide receiver going across the middle or picks off the ball, that is the question. Disengages from blocks well. He hits insanely hard too. He could play every role you need a safety to play. He could be like a Kyle Hamilton in theory. It's just a question of how do you utilize him. I am a little bit upset that he went to this team that's so stagnant in terms of utilization. I don't think they take advantage of versatility too much, but I still think he's going to be a great, great, great free safety. I just think it's a little bit of misutilization. Only issue, undersized, right? And I
Yep.
think the
And small
tackling
in
could
front.
be a little bit off. But besides that, man, I mean, so much positive, so little negative. I just hope he gets used correctly by the team.
Right. I love Javon Bullard too. He was my second ranked safety, and that was just because I fell in love with someone we mentioned in the Cardinals video, Dadrian Taylor Demerson. But I mean, I had again, we said it was a stacked DB class. I had like 5 safeties with a day 2 grade, which I haven't had for a long time. Like there were a
Yeah.
lot of good safeties in this class, and Javon Bullard is one of them. And the fact that the Packers ended up getting him, I agree. I think he, even where he went, was just a little too far past where he should have gone.
Yeah,
So
I feel like it was very, very
yeah,
far past. The only thing was it was so stacked at safety. I think that's why they waited.
that's part of why. It's
Uh,
exactly.
yeah.
But
Now,
let's talk about. Oh,
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
just thinking back. Maybe he wouldn't have been my second ranked DB. That might be a little bit of a stretch because I did
But
really
you're
like
getting your point
Quinion. I
across,
really
though.
liked Aaron Arnold. I exaggerated a little bit, but everything I said right there in terms of his positives, I was just reading straight off the scouting report from me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's a great, great, versatile player who they could do so much with, potentially.
So then we talk about the new addition in free agency, Xavier McKinney.
Mm.
This is a big get for this team, man. Xavier McKinney was really good with this Giants team. At least he was in 2022. Was I think his best season with the Giants. And last year, I think he was good. I don't think he was quite as good as he once was. Either way, it's an upgrade over what they had, absolutely, and he's one of the better safeties in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's someone as a strong safety can go down, lay the wood. I think he covers a lot of space for a strong
And that
safety, a
and
box
that's
guy.
kind of what I wanted to get to in the sense of he's a strong safety. He's gonna play in the box. He's gonna lay the wood, but he's like really good in coverage for someone you'd label a
Mhm.
strong safety.
Yeah,
That he could play free safety if the
and
team wanted him
and
to.
Bullard could play strong safety. So
Exactly.
you could do some interesting things here. Rotating your guys. Have Javon Bullard come down as a rover, and then have McKinney drop back into the deep zone. Like, you could do a lot of interesting stuff here. I hope they do. I just don't know if that's Halfley's game once again.
Yeah, it's kind of an unknown with Halfley because again, in college when it is more simplistic, he just ran
Yep.
nickel and 4-3 and said it's man coverage with one high or it's
Hmm.
cover three. Good
Yeah,
luck.
exactly. Then we look at
So
some of the depth. I mean,
I want to talk about the 2 rookies they drafted,
yeah.
specifically one of them. So first is Evan Williams. I wasn't he they dra- again they drafted 3 safeties. So these are the other two. Evan Williams coming out of Oregon. I wasn't a huge Evan Williams guy at all. I didn't really see much of anything. He did win MVP at a defensive MVP at the Senior Bowl, so good for him. Good for him, right? That means he's future NFL star. But
Yeah, I guess so.
Evan Williams, he just like not quite the athlete you'd like at safety. I don't think he's like from a technique standpoint, he's anything special either. So he's able to make up for it. I just want to mention that he's here, but I did like Keaton Oladapo. Keaton Oladapo is one of my like sleeper safeties in this draft.
Hmm.
This is like again, this is strong safety, like linebacker type of guy. He played a lot of linebacker at Oregon State, where he'd come into the box, they'd just place him as the Mike or something like that, and he'd go hit a hole. He's a fantastic run defender. I think he's okay in coverage. Definitely not good enough to pass as a safety, but if you're
Hmm.
playing him in the box covering a tight end, he can do it.
Yeah.
So I did. That's the guy I really wanted to mention here is Keaton
Hmm.
Oladapo.
Yeah,
I think
he's an
he did
interesting
well.
box guy for sure.
Yes.
I completely agree. Then we move over to the defensive superlatives. Defensive player of the year, I think we're going to have the same name. Actually, there's a couple of options,
There's a couple of options. I
but
feel like
I'm kind of expecting the same name here.
Rashawn Gary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Good.
You can make a strong argument for
For
Jair.
Jair. Yep.
Absolutely. I think, like, sleeper Xavier McKinney. But yeah, Yeah,
No,
even Kenny Clark you could throw out there.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary's about to have a big year, guys.
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary's about to have
As a again, him being in a 3-point stance every down rusher, it's going to be so different for him. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I imagine you know my pick.
Yeah, I imagine you know mine too. It's Javon Buller.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Then X Factor.
It's Kalen King, actually. I'm sorry.
X Factor, I have 2 names written down because I'm expecting you to say one, and then I'm going to name the other.
Okay. My X Factor is Lucas Van Ness.
Okay, so I'm going to say Devontae Wyatt then.
There you go.
There you go. Because, listen, very similar thing with both of them. Have the tools, we just haven't seen enough from them. Devontae Wyatt has looked less inspiring. Van Ness just hasn't been on the field yet.
I got to tell you guys, like, there is a world where this is the best defensive line in football.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
There's absolutely
if the pieces come together, yeah, for sure.
Where it's 4 first-round draft picks on the defensive line with Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, who we know, and then Devontae Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness put it together with their athleticism, and this is the best defensive line in football. And then it's really hard to score in this team because the secondary is good enough to where when your defensive line is getting there in 2 seconds, good luck. Good luck opposing offenses.
Yeah. So then we move over to special teams.
Yes.
This is kind of their Achilles heel, right?
I do want to say one thing. I do want to talk about their punter, Daniel Whelan. Went to high school with my cousin and played football with him.
Oh, there you go.
I've met him. Coachella Valley legend, Daniel Whelan. So before we say it's their Achilles heel, shout out Daniel Whelan, my dog.
I'm going to say some stuff. Okay. I'm going to act like you didn't say that. Or I'm going to say it for you. I'm going to say it. Keep in mind.
Keep it out of my mouth. Keep it out of my mouth.
Yeah. This is not him saying what I'm going to say. Anders Carlson. I'll start with him.
So Anders, yeah.
Big leg. But he was pretty below average from 40-plus last year. Only made 7 out of 13. He wasn't what you would want from a big leg kicker. And now Whalen, I'm just going to say a statistic. That's all I'm saying. Green Bay finished last place in the league in touchback percentage, 59%. That's not a good thing. Normally that's on the punter. Now, are there other factors that go into that? The blocking and stuff? Sure. But those are the facts there. Green Bay was also the most penalized team in the NFL on special teams. That needs to be fixed, right? Rich Bisaccia, he's someone we all know as, this guy who maybe should have kept the Raiders job because he was good as an interim head coach. He has not done a very good job with this special teams unit. However, there is one huge bright spot, and that is Keyshawn Nixon, who might be the NFL's best return man. I think you can make a strong argument. Will that remain the case with the new rules? I have no idea why it wouldn't be. Jaden Reed can also be a dynamic returner for them, especially if he's their 4th receiver. Then he'll definitely see volume there.
Bo Melton can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. They have other guys, Oladapo, Kalen King, Tyron Hopper, Corey Ballantyne, Tyler Davis.
If Marshawn Lloyd was healthy, Marshawn Lloyd could do it.
Yeah. Well, I was just naming other guys that could contribute on, kickoff team, punt team, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marshawn Lloyd absolutely could go out there and do it. They have other guys. And let's say, hypothetically, Christian Watson did get benched. That is a very good gunner, potentially. Very, very good gunner.
Right.
But now we get into our prediction. What are you feeling in terms of floor and ceiling?
I think the floor for this team is like 9-8. I think this is
really.
I think the floor for this team is like 9-8. I think this team's gonna be good. This team is set up for success as long as they're healthy, which I have no reason to believe that they won't be. This team is set up for success. I think this is a very, very good football team.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I have the floor lower just because, what if Jordan Love takes a step back, right? He is going into his 2nd year as a starter. That is possible, right? What if Halfley doesn't do a great job with this defense, right? What if Guys like Rashawn Garrett don't take that next step like we expect. I think there's a lot of games here that they can lose. I put 7-10 as the floor.
Okay, totally fine. I might be a little higher with that floor. It feel after what I saw last year, it's so hard to imagine this team getting worse, right? And
Yeah, that's fair.
it's hard to imagine
That's
this team
fair.
going
But there
worse.
is things that can lead. Like there are questions. We feel good about how they assess those questions, but there's a world where they don't work out the way we expect. What do you have for the ceiling for this team?
Ceiling for me is 13-4. Like it's a big ceiling.
I put 12-5, so
So
13-4. All right. What's your prediction?
I think they're going to go 11-6. That's my prediction.
10-7 for me.
Cool.
So now we jump into the schedule. They started off with a really tough one on Peacock, Friday Night Football. Philadelphia.
I'm leaning Philadelphia at Philadelphia on prime time. This team's still very good, as we'll see sooner rather than later. But I'm assuming you think the same.
Yeah, I mean, Philly, that's a tough opponent, man. That is a tough opponent. I think
It's one of those teams where the creativeness or the lack of creativeness on defense could come to haunt them because that offensive line is good enough to just handle
yeah.
the
And then
Phillies' rush.
A.J.
Yeah.
Brown, I know
Devontae
Jair
Smith.
Alexander, that should be a tough fight, but then who's playing on Devonta Smith, right?
Right.
And then what happens if you overplay the pass? Now, Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts are doing damage on the ground. It's just like, Philly is a nightmare for opponents this year.
Yes.
Like, truly. They are a tough team. There's a reason that we haven't went over them yet.
Then you move to the Colts at Green Bay. I feel very comfortable saying Green Bay here. I think this is a defense that Matt LaFleur can very much
Yes.
take advantage of. And
Yeah.
Jordan Love.
That's what the Shanahanians do. They bully cover 3, especially when they have strong arm quarterbacks. Like, yeah, this is without a doubt going to work in the Packers' favor.
Then I could say the same thing about Tennessee. While it's it's not exactly a cover 3. We're dealing with Denard Wilson here, a
A McDonald disciple.
McDonald disciple, but still, it's going to be a defense that's learning this new exotic kind of hard to understand. Not hard to understand, but you get my point. New defense,
Complex defense.
complex defense. That's the word I was.
Where
looking
there's
for.
a lot of room for error.
Yes, and that error will probably be created, and Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur should be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, that's what LaFleur does, man. Then you go against Minnesota. I think Flores could give this team some problems. I do.
I think they are going to split, personally, and so I'll give this one to Green Bay since it's at home. But I think Flores always does, right? Like Flores always figures something out. It's just, especially because this isn't a team that necessarily has the receivers to take advantage of how weak Minnesota's secondary is. This isn't like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. This isn't Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. This is, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed.
That
Which
being
isn't bad.
said, Jair does bully Justin Jefferson whenever
He
they
does.
face off for whatever
He does.
reason, right? So could be tougher for the Vikings. If you had to say one team to win both, which one?
I'd still probably say the Packers.
I think Minnesota.
Okay.
So then we get to the Rams in LA. The Rams are really good.
Rams are good.
I don't trust anyone to hold. I have a lot of faith in that pass rush for the Rams this year. I don't trust the Packers O-line enough. I think Jordan Love is going to have to get the ball out hot. I think that's something he can do, but I think that restricts a lot of what makes this offense so good.
Right.
And I think as a result, the Rams, especially at home, win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Then we move to the Cardinals at Green Bay. Will be a tough one for Green Bay. I'd still lean Green Bay, though, just because I think Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur can take advantage of this match quarters defense that Josh Gannon runs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand that. I think they could have some problems, but I definitely like how this Packers defense matches up against Arizona. I think that's the big thing here, right? You shut down Marvin Harrison using Jair, and then you shut down that run game with a great defensive front, at least D-line front.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing there. But then you play against Houston in Green Bay.
I think this is like I think this could be for one. This should be a fantastic game to watch. This should be a super
Mhm.
fun game to watch. But two, I don't know. I think they have. I think Green Bay could pull this one off. Being in Green Bay, I think they match up pretty well defensively against this Texans offense. Now it's a matter of how good is this Texans defense in year two. There's a chance it's one of the best in football. And again, there's a reason we haven't touched on the Texans yet. This is a really good football team. Kind of a coin toss for me. I kind of want to lean Green Bay because it's in Lambeau, but it could be.
I think that the zone defense that the Packers run, or sorry, that the Texans run, can be exploited by the Packers.
Yeah.
That being said, I think D'Amico kind of has stuff dialed up for the Shanahanian zone beaters. So it's tough. It's tough. I think this game might come down to who's the better quarterback that day. And notice I say that day because Jordan Love can be having some games where he's the best quarterback that week.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But then we go into Jacksonville with the Packers. I feel pretty good.
I feel super comfortable with the Packers. Yeah.
Yeah, because like those corners in Jacksonville aren't anything too special. They're not going to completely shut down this wide receiver room. I feel good about it. And
Then you have Detroit, which should be two of the best games of the year here. I think they're going to split. That's kind of what I decided on looking at it. I think they're going to split again. I'd give the Green Bay again the one at home, and I'd give Detroit the one at home.
the O line versus D line matchup is going to be a big, big thing. It's going to be really fun to watch. If you had to say one team wins both, which one?
I'd say Detroit.
Yeah, I agree.
Detroit,
I think with their new corner room, they're not going to struggle as much against Green Bay. I feel pretty good about Detroit winning against Green Bay. Then bye week, then you play at Chicago.
Feel good about Matt LaFleur off a bye.
Yeah,
I do. So I'm going
right.
with the Packers.
Absolutely. Then San Fran. I mean, this could be a pretty good one.
This could be a good one. I do think, again, we mentioned in the last team too, I do think San Fran's really going to be scratching and clawing for a playoff spot at this point. And I think it's going to be a must win for them. And I think they match up all right. If their team's healthy, I think this team matches up all right, again, defensively and offensively. So I am going to lean the 49ers here. But
yeah, I mean, I gotta.
It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. Once again, I like how Shanahan teams match up against the Shanahanian defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Shanahanian defensive coordinators know how to beat the Shanahanian zone beaters. How many times can I say Shanahanian? Jesus. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting one. I don't think the 49ers have the depth in the secondary to deal with this passing attack. And I think that is going to be the advantage here. I think this is going to be a big depth game. But Jordan Love has to be on point in this game. Absolutely. Then Miami. We talked about Miami. We said that Miami, the way that team functions is they beat teams they are better than and they lose to teams they are worse than. I feel pretty comfortable saying that the Packers are better than Miami.
Not only that, you're talking about this team going to Lambeau in December.
Yes.
Like this is a tough matchup on every level of the field.
This is probably the most obvious Miami loss.
Yeah, this is Green Bay win for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talk about Detroit.
Yeah.
Then we move to Seattle. Could be interesting. Seattle's
time.
Probably coming on at this point of the season.
Sunday night football game.
I still do feel pretty good about Green Bay coming off this mini bye.
I'm interested to see how LaFleur looks against a McDonald defense.
Yes.
I am. I think that's going to be a big thing here. I don't quite know what to expect yet. Then four straight primetime games for them. My Lord. Monday Night Football against the Saints.
I feel very okay saying the Packers win this one.
Yeah, although the Saints being able to shut down that rushing attack could be a big thing. The play action game won't be there.
Maybe Spencer Rattler's probably starting at this point in the season.
Maybe I could see an upset. I definitely could. Prime time, anything could happen late in the season. They might have a new head coach at this point. Yeah. I feel pretty good about a potential upset here. Then Minnesota, we talked about them. And then Chicago, we lightly went over. How do you think Green Bay matches up against Chicago?
Green Bay matches up against Chicago. It's weird because I think both teams match up into each other well offensively.
Yeah.
I think both of them do. Defensively, both. I think it comes down to who's the better quarterback that day, Caleb Williams or Jordan Love. I think is where these games are going to come down to, which is super exciting for Bears fans, I'd imagine, because you're not sitting here like, I hope Justin Fields doesn't turn the ball over 3 times while we play the Packers. But at this point in the season, I think the Bears are playing for a play. We talked about in the Bears video.
Yeah.
Bears are playing for a playoff spot. Packers are like, we don't like you, so we're going to try and knock you out of the playoffs. We'll see. I'm not going to name the name.
I look at it. I look at the film from last year, from the Green Bay versus Chicago games. Those are very fun watches, by the way.
Yes.
I think Chicago really struggled to match the complex looks of a Green Bay. And because of that, and them now having Josh Jacobs on this team to make that running game even more potent, I feel pretty good saying Green Bay.
Right. But I also think about this is where, hey, Heffley, if you're just going to run cover one against Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen, it's going to be tough. Like, that's what I mean by this. This offense matches up pretty damn well into this defense. But
yeah, it definitely should be a fun one. Definitely should be a fun one. Anyway, that is all for this one. Why don't you go ahead and wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching this installment of the 2024 Preseason Power Rankings. If you like this video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the account. Please remember that the evens come out on my channel and the odds come out on Pat's, which I have linked in the description. And thank you everybody for watching. We will see you next time.